Welcome to Comicstorian's Complete Story Series. Here you can find your favorite comic books recapped for you in a very dramatic fashion. All alterations to the panel text and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. When we last left off, Flash had joined with the Secret Avengers so that Captain America could keep a close eye on the Venom symbiote. During his first mission, Flash was sent out to watch over the transportation of the human fly. However, during the transport, Hobgoblin attacked and the human fly managed to escape. As Flash sits in his apartment, he begins to think about how he used to have options. Run away from home or take the beatings. Stuff Peter in a locker or give him a swirly. Stay with Betty or break clean and spare her the heartache. But now, there is no choice. He has to do this. He picks up the phone and he tells Hank that he needs the suit. Hank asks if he needs some help, but Flash tells him that it's a local thug thing. He can handle it on his own. However, as Flash leaves and swings away, Eddie Brock is watching from afar. With the recent escape of the Fly, Crime Master has reached out and extended his hand to allow the Fly to join his group. Currently, Crime Master is working on a new project and he needs some specialists like the Fly to help him. But as the meeting goes on, Flash sits in the rafters above, aiming a rifle at Crime Master's head. Crime Master knows who he is. He knows his family. So right now he needs to be a soldier and just kill the man. Down below, Crime Master makes a toast to their new putrid friend, and he welcomes him to the Savage Six. Flash takes a breath and he aims his shot, and then a gun goes off. 2 bullets fly at Flash and he looks over and shouts, "Brock?" Eddie screams out, "The symbiote must be annihilated! The world must be cleaned of its blight!" As Flash falls, he quickly webs to catch himself, and then he webs Eddie in place. Once getting stable, Flash then opens fire on the villains down below. The living computer program MegaTack creates a barrier to shield the group, and Crime Master tells Fly to go kill whatever son of a bitch is shooting at us. Jack-O-Lantern flies up telling Flash that he just knew it! Couldn't he just leave them alone? And Fly heads up, dropping Death Adder onto Flash. Flash tries to fight off the now 3 villains that are attacking him, but it doesn't last long before Flash comes crashing down to the ground. Crime Master says that he's a reasonable man. Maybe he'll just kill his mom over in Queens. Flash picks himself up, aiming his gun, and then part of MegaTack's barrier slams down on him. The barrier pulls up and they shoot again, and Flash manages to pull back to avoid it. Right now he just needs to escape. He has to get his bearings and then kill them. After Flash escapes, Jack notices that Flash seems to have left him a present up in the rafters. A short while later, Eddie wakes up stripped of all of his clothing. While Jack starts to open a canister, Crime Master tells Eddie that he saw profit in what Flash was doing with this whole superhero thing. But the thing that they missed was their symbiote didn't have a host. Toxin begins to crawl out, covering Eddie, and Crime Master begins to ask, "How do you feel? What would you and your new friend like to do?" And Toxin stands up, telling him, "Kill Venom!" But shortly after making sure that he wasn't followed, Flash heads over to Betty's apartment to check on her. There's no one home, but he sees a note in the fridge that Betty went to go meet Peter for coffee. Over at the coffee shop, Betty mentions to Peter that she is sick of being lied to by men. Heck, even her own brother Bennett got himself killed over gambling bets. And as the two of them go on, Betty notices her phone ring when Flash calls, so she doesn't answer. Peter gets up stating that he hates to leave, but Betty tells him it's fine. She knows that he has to get back to work. After Peter leaves, Betty's phone rings again, and Betty says, "Not now, Flash. Not now." She heads in line to get another cup of coffee, and as she goes to pay, Jack hands the money over, stating that this is on him. As the two of them walk out, Jack says that he needs to talk to her about something. It's about Flash. He leans in and Betty tells him that she's not so sure, and then Jack grabs a hold of her arm. Seconds later, Flash crashes into the coffee shop, tackling Jack to the ground. Flash begins to beat on Jack, so Betty pulls out a sonic pepper spray and blasts it into Flash's head. He webs up the pepper spray and tells Betty to run. Flash then goes back to beating on Jack, and a giant arm punches through, knocking Flash away. And Jack tells him, "Meet MegaTack." Jack laughs, stating that we need to go and find Betty. But Flash webs up Jack's face and flings him and MegaTack into a wall. Flash escapes and he tries to call up Betty, but just as he holds the phone to his ear, MegaTack's arm flies out, punching him. After falling to the ground, Flash decides that he just needs to leave the phone behind and go grab Betty. Once the two of them are safely away, Betty asks, what does he want? And Flash tells her he's trying to help her, and right now, she had better hang on. The two swing through the city, and then 2 red tendrils shoot out towards them. Flash's grip on Betty is loosened as she starts to fall, and just before hitting the ground, Flash grabs onto her, and then they hear a voice stating, "We've come for you!" Toxin comes charging at Flash, and the two of them begin punching away at each other. Toxin then wraps Flash up, and Flash begins to recognize the voice as Eddie Brock. Using the pepper spray from before, Flash pulls away and begins to blast Eddie in the face, and now with Eddie stunned, Flash wraps him up and tells the people around to call 911. These restraints won't hold him for long. Flash then asks where did the woman that was with him go, and the small child points towards the alley. He calls out to Betty and she tells him to leave her alone. And as the mask pulls back, Flash tells her that he's not going to hurt her, more than he already has. Betty looks up and realizes that Venom is Flash and slaps him. She tells him that this whole time, and Flash tells her that he's sorry, but she's in danger and they need to go. As the two of them swing through the city, Betty says, "Damn you, Flash Thompson." And while swinging, he grabs onto a man's cell phone to call his mother. Back with his mom, she lays on the ground as the Fly asks, "Who could that be?" Betty says that she's not answering, and then Megatach's face appears on the cell phone. Betty tosses the phone as Megatach reaches out, but the grab misses. Flash then heads over to his sister Jessie's apartment to check on her, but as he walks through the place, he sees Jessie's husband with the top of his head cut off. Next to the bed, Jessie's voice calls out, "Who's there?" And Flash reaches out grabbing a blanket, and as he pulls it away, the devil dolls spring out. Flash destroys most of it, and then he notices one of the eyes on one of them is changing into a countdown. He quickly runs back out of the apartment, grabbing Betty, and just as they get away, the building explodes. And as the smoke pours into the air, Flash notices something shoot out from it and realizes Jack came back to watch the show. Following the smoke, Flash soon finds Jessie tied up on the roof of a building. Flash makes his way down, and Jack slashes away at his back, yelling, "Boo! Look at the two of us! We both got hot dates, and we both just leave them on rooftops!" Flash reaches out for his gun and he begins to fire at Jack. Though he misses most of his bullets, one does hit Jack right in the side. He grabs a hold of Flash and begins to pour fire onto his face, throwing him off of the side of the roof. While Flash is washing the fire off, Jack picks up Jessie and tosses her over the ledge. Flash quickly swings down, catching her, and then suddenly he hears Betty scream for help. He looks over to see Toxin grabbing onto Betty, and Jack says, "Tough break, but I've got to go now. Bullet holes to patch up." But before he goes, he does have one question. "Have you visited your mother recently, Flash?" As Toxin and Jack leave, Flash heads over to his mother's apartment to find it destroyed. He begins to check the bile left by Fly, and Flash is hit in the back! He turns around to see Death Adder, and Death Adder knocks Flash into a wall. He grabs onto every knife that he can, and he jumps back, stabbing at Death Adder, and the two of them begin to struggle. But after Death Adder knocks Flash away again, he begins to escape. As Death Adder runs, Flash webs him up by the head and slams him back into the apartment. Death Adder continues to try and run away, but as he runs through a woman's apartment, Flash jumps onto his back. He screams for the woman to get out, and thinks how he doesn't want her to see this, and with one quick jerk of the head, Flash snaps Death Adder's neck and he falls to the ground. Some of the other tenants in the apartment building begin to come out, and he decides that it's time for him to leave. A short while later, over at the Lower East Side, the Fly begs for him not to do it. And without any words, Flash's mother watches in horror as the Fly begins to scream. Flash stands over the Fly, holding a recently cut off wing, asking, "Where is she?" And Fly shouts to Flash's mother, telling him to look at what her boy is doing. Flash leans down, telling him, "You better not speak to her again, or we'll see how well you fly with one wing and no eyes." The Fly says, "Fine, I'll talk." And Flash turns to his mother, stating, "Ma'am, close your eyes." Flash cuts off the second wing and tells Fly, "You wanted to talk, right? So talk." Meanwhile, over at the abandoned shipyard, Betty wakes up as one of Crime Master's men directs her into another room. She steps through the door and sees pictures of her and Bennett. Crime Master tells her it's quite a shrine, isn't it? An ode to Bennett and his little sister Betty. Crime Master begins to pull his hood off, stating how that family was stripped for him, and now crime is his family. Betty looks at the man, realizing that it's her brother Bennett. Bennett says he's right here and he's offering her a second chance to be together, and she's gonna watch him murder the hell out of Flash Thompson. As the night begins to fall, one of the guards asks, why does he have a silencer on his gun? What do they need to do that's quiet? Bullets begin to fire at the guard, and Flash reverts the suit back to his normal look. Back inside, Bennett begins to explain that he was in a bad place in life, was shot and killed, and what stung more is that his sister thought that he was nothing more than a gutter trash gambler. After pushing her away, he tells her that he can't blame her. He's bettered himself now, though. That day he was shot, and he suddenly woke up in a secret morgue and began to walk through the hallways. Though he wasn't sure as to why they saved him, they chose him. They chose him to fulfill a great destiny and live on the noble tradition, a crime master for every generation. As Bennett goes on, one of the guards runs in stating that he's here. And out in the hallways, Flash begins to fight off Megatach. However, Megatach's power slowly begins to win the fight. He says that even though Flash is weak, his code is clean. And Toxin's voice tells him, "No mercy! It's not your right to offer him such kindness!" Toxin appears and he bites down on Megatach's head, shouting, "He's mine!" As Megatach begins to fade away, Flash begins to fight off Toxin. He throws some smoke grenades out there, and Toxin shouts, "How weak that you resort to trickery!" But through the smoke, Toxin sees Flash and he rips him to pieces. And then he shouts, "What's this?" And Flash shouts, "It's a decoy." And he opens fire. Literal fire begins to cover Toxin, and Flash jumps into Toxin's mouth, spreading it open. He reaches down and he begins to pull Eddie out of it, and he drops another set of grenades into the symbiote's mouth. As the symbiote begins to burn, Toxin reaches out, trying to pull Eddie back to him to try and escape. But while both Toxin and Eddie burn, Eddie screams, "What have you done to me?" The flames begin to take over Eddie as he screams out in pain, and Flash runs off thinking how Eddie didn't deserve that. Deeper down in the facility, Betty tells Bennett that she'll do whatever he wants, just leave Flash alone. And Bennett asks if she really thinks that he's foolish enough to convince him that she's just going to be his doting sister crime mistress. He goes on stating how she'll just betray him the first chance that she gets, and Flash calls out that he's right, he's going to die. Jack flies up telling Flash that he's getting bored of their rival, but his sentence is cut short when Flash jumps down, knocking Jack off of his broom. Jack's body begins to hang over a vat of acid as he tries to call for help, but soon Jack's legs give out and he falls below. Crime Master points his gun, laughing. Ha ha ha! He's a tough kid, he'll be fine. Betty shouts for Flash to wait, it's her brother, and Flash tells her it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who he is! Bennett fires his gun, releasing sonic shots that are stunning Flash, and then he begins to fire fire at him to burn Venom away. Venom starts to fall off of Flash's body, and Bennett says, "Get ready for another shot!" And as the gunshot goes off, Bennett looks down at his chest. He falls to his knees, and Betty stands behind him with tears in her eyes. As he loses his strength, he falls off the ledge into the vat of acid. He stands up, stating that was her brother, and Betty tells him that her brother died a long time ago. Shortly after the two of them leave, Flash tells Betty that he never knew, but she tells him it wouldn't have changed anything. He says that he never meant for things to turn out this way, and Betty says that she knows he didn't, but for what it's worth, she forgives him, but she does not ever want to see him again. After Betty heads home, Flash returns to the lighthouse station and tells everyone that he may have hit a big stumble. It didn't go well, but it's time for him to come clean. As time passed, Flash begins to think about how normally this is the kind of day where families have those fuzzy feelings, sunny memories. But for him, that was never really the case. His father beat him, and in turn, he beat others. And right now on Father's Day, Jack is making it a point to let Flash know that he's still alive with all of these killings. Jack was brainwashed into thinking that Bennett, the crime master, was his father, and the killings escalated on Father's Day. With those killings, Jack made it a point to leave clues as to where to find him, so Flash followed those clues, and as he walks into the sewers, he finds a door with an X on it. The door flies open, and at the end of the table sits Flash's father's corpse with its head carved out, telling him, "Have a seat." The corpse goes on stating how he never really liked him. It took all of his strength to not crush his skull in. Flash allows rage to begin to flow through him, and he slams down screaming, "You rotten son of a bitch!" The table breaks and the body slumps over, and it says, "I'm back to kick your ass one last time," because behind the body is a bomb, and it begins to beep. The explosion goes off, and Jack jumps down asking if it was nice seeing his dad again, because he knows how much it hurt to lose one. He slashes at Flash's back, and he begins to cut away at his chest, and Jack says that Jesse told him a lot of things about his dad, and almost made him feel sorry for him. Flash tries to crawl away, but Jack steps on his head and raises the sickle. Before he can strike down, Flash turns back, shooting his gun into Jack's chest. He then jumps up, beating Jack, letting the rage out, just like how his father used to do back then. And once Jack stops moving, Flash points his gun down at Jack's head. Flash says that their father's hatred will run through their veins. He picks up Jack's body and he goes on stating, "But if we make a different choice, who knows what'll happen." And with that, Jack was taken in to be arrested, and things go back to the way they were. Betty staying away from Flash, Flash's mother being alone, and Flash going to bed, looking at a picture of his family, smiling and happy. And that concludes the Savage 6 and the Toxin area, and we just get a little bit more of Betty. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know down below what you think about this current chapter of the Age of Venom storyline as we keep progressing through it. If you're wondering, Eddie Brock and Toxin will be back very, very soon. Follow me on Twitter at Comicstorian and Instagram at Comicstorian, and I'll see you next time right here.